My name is Andrea, and I've been a professional massage therapist for over a decade now. For the past 8 years, I've also been a wife, though sometimes I wonder if that role suits me as well as my career does. I'm 35, with dark hair that's usually tied back in a practical ponytail, and hands that have become strong and skilled from years of working on tense muscles. I specialize in sports massage, helping athletes recover from injuries and improve their performance. It's demanding work, but I love the challenge. There's something deeply satisfying about feeling the knots in someone's muscles give way under my fingers, knowing I'm helping them heal and reach their full potential. My husband, Tom, doesn't quite get it. He's 37, works as an office clerk, and his idea of a good time is lounging on the couch with a beer, watching whatever game is on TV. He's not a bad guy, really. Just different from me. Andrea, why don't you take a break? Tom called from the living room as I pored over my accounts one evening. Come watch the game with me. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I can't, Tom. I'm trying to figure out how much more I need to save for the office space. He appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with a slight frown. You're always working. We should be enjoying life, not killing ourselves for some future that might never come. This is important to me, I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. I want my own business, my own space. I'm tired of working for other people. This was a familiar dance between us. We'd reached a compromise of sorts over the years. We each contributed a set amount to our shared expenses, and whatever was left was ours to spend, or save, as we saw fit. It wasn't perfect, but it allowed me to squirrel away money for my future business, without constant arguments. The apartment we lived in was a wedding gift from my father. It wasn't large, but it was in a good neighborhood and, most importantly, it was ours free and clear. No mortgage meant I could focus on saving for my business instead of paying for a roof over our heads. The next morning, I was up early as usual, preparing for another long day of appointments at the 2 clinics where I worked. As I sipped my coffee, Tom stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and yawning. You're up early, he mumbled, reaching for the coffee pot. Oh, by the way, my mom called yesterday. She and Sarah want to book a wellness course with you. I froze, my mug halfway to my lips. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, and her daughter, Tom's sister, Sarah were, well, let's just say they weren't my favorite people. Did you tell them I'd do it? Tom looked surprised. Of course. Why wouldn't you? They're family. I bit back a sigh. This was going to be a problem, I could feel it. But I forced a smile and nodded. Right. Family. I'll fit them in somewhere. The day Evelyn and Sarah came for their wellness course was the beginning of a nightmare I couldn't have anticipated. They sauntered into my clinic like they owned the place, designer handbags swinging from their arms. Andrea, darling, Evelyn's voice was saccharine sweet. We're so excited for our spa day. I forced a smile. It's not exactly a spa day, Evelyn. This is a therapeutic massage course. Sarah rolled her eyes. Same difference. Let's get started, shall we? I have a hair appointment later. I gritted my teeth and led them to the treatment room. For the next 2 hours, I worked on relieving Evelyn's chronic back pain and Sarah's tension headaches. I used every technique in my arsenal, determined to give them the best possible treatment despite their attitude. As we finished up, Evelyn stretched languidly. Oh, that was lovely. We'll have to do this again soon. Great, I said, reaching for my appointment book. When would you like to schedule your next session? It will cost. Andrea, Evelyn cut me off, her voice suddenly cold. We're family. Surely you're not expecting us to pay for this? My jaw dropped. What? Of course, I expect payment. This is my job, Evelyn. Well, I never, Evelyn huffed. Tom will hear about this. Come on, Sarah. They swept out of the clinic, leaving me stunned and angry. I knew I should have seen this coming, but their audacity still caught me off guard. That night, I confronted Tom about it. "Your mother and sister came in for treatments today," I began, trying to keep my voice level. "They refused to pay." Tom looked up from his phone, surprised. "Well, maybe you should have just given it to them as a gift. They are family, after all." The following weeks brought more frustrations. Evelyn started calling regularly, complaining about various aches and pains, hinting heavily that I should help out. Sarah took to dropping by unannounced on weekends, kids in tow. "Andrea, be a dear and watch the kids for a few hours," she'd say, already halfway out the door. "I've got a mani-pedi appointment." I tried to protest, to set boundaries, but Tom always sided with them. "They're family," he'd say, as if that explained and excused everything. One Saturday, after Sarah had once again left her children with me without warning, I confronted Tom. "This has to stop," I said firmly. "I'm not a free babysitter or on-call masseuse. You need to talk to your sister." Tom's face darkened. "Andrea, they're my family. I expect you to be loyal and obedient. That's what a good wife does." I stared at him, really seeing him for perhaps the first time in our marriage. This man, who I'd loved for 8 years, didn't understand me at all. He didn't support my dreams, didn't respect my work. To him, I was just an extension of his family, expected to fall in line with their demands. The following weeks were a blur of work and tension at home. I threw myself into my job, working longer hours at the clinics and squirreling away every penny I could. Tom and I barely spoke, the silence between us growing heavier with each passing day. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, I received a call that shattered my world. My father had passed away suddenly in his sleep. The phone slipped from my numb fingers as the news washed over me like a tidal wave of grief. I don't remember much of the next few days. I moved through the motions of arranging the funeral, greeting distant relatives, accepting condolences. Tom was there, a silent presence at my side, but I felt more alone than ever. It wasn't until after the funeral, sitting in my father's lawyer's office, that I began to surface from my fog of grief. "Andrea," the lawyer said gently, "your father left you his house. Everything is in order, the property is yours free and clear." I blinked, struggling to process this information. The house, my childhood home, filled with memories of happier times. I hadn't even thought about what would happen to it. As we left the lawyer's office, Tom spoke up for the first time. "This is great, Andrea. Think of all the space we'll have. We could throw some amazing parties." I tuned him out, my mind whirling. The house represented both a gift and a burden. It was too big for just the two of us, and the thought of the upkeep was daunting. But I couldn't bear the thought of selling it either. Every room held echoes of my father's laughter, his encouragement, his love. "I think we should rent it out," I said abruptly, cutting off Tom's excited chatter about remodeling plans. Tom's face fell. "Rent it out? But Andrea, think of the opportunities." "I have thought about it," I interrupted. "This is what I want to do. It's my house, Tom." He sulked for days after that, but I stood firm. I found a reputable rental agency and signed a contract with them. It felt like the right decision, giving me time to grieve and consider my options without making any rash choices. A week later, I received a call from the agency that left me bewildered. They informed me that they couldn't access the property. Apparently, some tenants were occupying the house and refusing to let them in. I was shocked. Who could these people be? How did they get into my father's house? A mix of confusion and anger swirled inside me as I grabbed my car keys. I had to see this for myself. As I pulled up to my father's house, my heart was pounding. The familiar sight of the old Victorian-style home, with its wraparound porch and faded blue paint, brought a rush of memories. But those nostalgic feelings were quickly overshadowed by my growing anger and confusion. I marched up to the front door and knocked forcefully. "Hello?" I called out. "This is my property. I demand to know who's in there." The door creaked open, and I found myself face to face with my mother-in-law, Evelyn, flanked by her daughter Sarah and Sarah's children. "Andrea, dear," Evelyn exclaimed, her voice sickly sweet. "What a surprise to see you here." I struggled to find words, my mouth opening and closing silently before I finally managed to speak. What are you doing here? How did you get in?" Evelyn's smile didn't falter. "Oh, Tom gave us the keys. He said we could live here and look after the place." "Isn't that thoughtful of him?" My blood began to boil. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and dialed Tom's number. He answered on the third ring. "Hey, what's up?" "Tom," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained rage, "why are your mother and sister living in my father's house?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Look, Andrea, they needed a place to stay. Their old rental got sold, and they had nowhere to go. I knew the house was empty, so you gave them the keys without asking me?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Tom, I signed a contract with a rental agency. There are tenants supposed to be moving in." "Andrea, their family," Tom said, his tone growing stern. "They'll live there and look after the place. It's better than having strangers in it." "This is my house, Tom," I said through gritted teeth. "You had no right to make this decision without me. You need to come here right now and sort this out." "I'm busy," he replied curtly. "You're overreacting. Just let them stay." With that, he hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief, then turned back to Evelyn and Sarah. "This isn't your house, and you have no right to be here. I'm asking you nicely to leave. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." Sarah let out a harsh laugh. "Or what? You'll call the cops on your own family?" I met her gaze steadily. "If I have to, yes." For a moment, we all stood in tense silence. Then, without warning, Evelyn and Sarah burst into laughter. Before I could react, they stepped back and slammed the door in my face. I stood there, stunned, staring at the closed door of my own house. The audacity, the disrespect, it was too much. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone again and dialed 911. When the police arrived, I explained the situation as calmly as I could. To my relief, they understood and took my side. They knocked on the door and, when Evelyn answered, explained that she and her family had no legal right to be there. "Ma'am," one officer said firmly, "this property belongs to Andrea Thompson. You need to vacate the premises immediately." Evelyn's face contorted with anger. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. "You've crossed a line, Andrea," she spat. "You'll regret this, mark my words." As the police continued to insist they leave, Evelyn pulled out her phone. I watched as she dialed and put the phone to her ear. "Tom," she said, her voice suddenly trembling. "You need to come here right now. Your wife has called the police on us. We're not leaving until you get here and teach her some obedience." I watched in disbelief as Tom's car screeched to a halt in front of the house. He'd refused to come when I called, claiming he was too busy, but here he was, rushing to his mother's aid. Tom strode up to the porch, his face a mask of anger. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Evelyn burst into tears at the sight of her son. "Oh, Tom, your wife has called the police on us. We have nowhere to go." I tried to interject, to explain the situation, but Tom held up a hand to silence me. He wrapped his arms around his sobbing mother, shooting me a glare over her shoulder. "It's okay, Mom," he said soothingly. "I won't let you be out on the street. You can all come stay with us in our apartment." I stared at him, shocked. "Tom, you can't be serious. Our apartment is tiny. There's no room." "Well," he cut me off, his voice cold. "Since you don't want to be nice, things are going to have to get uncomfortable. You brought this on yourself, Andrea." And just like that, my life turned into a living hell. Our small apartment wasn't designed to house so many people. Evelyn, Sarah, and Sarah's 3 children moved in, turning our once peaceful home into chaos. The living room became a makeshift bedroom, with air mattresses taking up every inch of floor space. Privacy became a distant memory. The noise was constant. Sarah's children, aged 4, 6, and 8, seemed to be in a competition to see who could scream the loudest. They ran through the apartment like tornadoes, leaving destruction in their wake. One afternoon, I returned from work to find our TV smashed on the floor. The eldest boy had been trying to reach something on top of the entertainment center and had pulled the whole thing down. Kids will be kids, Sarah shrugged when I confronted her about it. The mess was overwhelming. Toys littered every surface, dirty dishes piled up in the sink, and laundry seemed to multiply overnight. Yet somehow, I was expected to clean it all up. When I protested, Tom would step in. "Come on, Andrea. You're the lady of the house. It's your job to make our guests comfortable." "Guests?" I would sputter. "They've taken over our home." But my protests fell on deaf ears. Tom, Evelyn, and Sarah had formed a united front against me. They criticized my cooking, complained about the cleanliness of the apartment, and made constant demands on my time and energy. I felt like a servant in my own home, constantly cooking, cleaning, and catering to their whims. The dreams of opening my own massage therapy business seemed to be slipping further away with each passing day. 2 months dragged by, each day blending into the next in a blur of exhaustion and frustration. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. Between the constant demands of Tom's family and the noise that seemed to permeate every corner of our small apartment, I found myself constantly on edge, never able to truly relax. One Friday, after a particularly grueling week at work, I reached my breaking point. The thought of returning to the madhouse that was now my home filled me with dread. Without really thinking it through, I decided to stay at my office overnight. The quiet solitude of the empty clinic was a balm to my frayed nerves, and for the first time in months, I slept deeply and peacefully. The next morning, feeling somewhat refreshed, I steeled myself and headed home. As soon as I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. Tom was waiting for me, his face a mask of fury. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded, not even giving me a chance to speak. "You didn't come home last night. You didn't cook dinner. You've completely abandoned your responsibilities." I tried to explain, to defend myself, but Tom wasn't interested in listening. "I've had enough," he spat. "You're neglectful, disobedient, and clearly don't care about this family. I want a divorce." Before I could process what was happening, Tom thrust a stack of papers into my hands. Divorce papers. Already signed by him. "I'll be demanding half of everything," he said coldly. "Now get out. I don't want to look at you anymore." With that, he pushed me out of the apartment and slammed the door in my face. I stood there, stunned, clutching the divorce papers and fighting back tears. In a daze, I made my way to my father's lawyer's office. As I explained the situation, the kind old man who had known my family for years listened patiently. "Andrea," he said gently when I finished, "I want you to take a deep breath and relax. Your soon-to-be ex-husband has no claim on your property. Both the house and the apartment were gifted to you by your father before your marriage. They're yours, free and clear." Relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a wave of exhaustion. As I left the lawyer's office, I found myself driving towards my father's house, my house now, I reminded myself. I made my way to my father's study, a room that had always been a sanctuary of sorts. As I began to sort through the papers on his desk, a sealed envelope caught my eye. It was addressed to me, in my father's familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened the letter and began to read. "My dearest Andrea. If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I want you to know how proud I am of the woman you've become. You've always had such drive, such passion for your work. I've watched you pour your heart and soul into your dream of owning your own massage therapy business. I'm writing this to tell you to follow your heart, Andrea. Trust yourself. You have the skills, the determination, and the compassion to make your dream a reality. To help you on your way, I want you to sell this house. Use the money to open that salon you've always talked about. I know it might be hard to let go of this place and all the memories it holds, but I want you to create new memories, new successes. Remember, I will always be with you, cheering you on. Go make your dreams come true, my darling daughter. All my love. Dad. Tears streamed down my face as I finished reading. Even now, months after his passing, my father was still supporting me, still believing in me. With renewed energy, I picked up the divorce papers Tom had thrust at me. Without hesitation, I signed my name next to his. This chapter of my life was over, and I was ready to start a new one. The next morning, I marched into the mayor's office and filed the divorce papers. As I walked out, I felt as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I was free. My next stop was my realtor friend, Sarah's office. Within weeks, both my father's house and the apartment were sold. The proceeds were more than I had dared to hope for. With Sarah's help, I found the perfect space for my massage parlor, a large, airy room in a bustling part of town. I poured my heart into transforming it, choosing soothing colors and comfortable furnishings. Every piece of equipment I purchased felt like a step closer to my dream. My final task was finding a new place to live. I fell in love with a small, cozy apartment just a few blocks from my new salon. It was perfect, a fresh start, close to my new business. As I was moving my things into my new apartment, I received a frantic call from my former neighbor. New tenants had shown up at my old apartment, much to the shock of Tom and his family. I couldn't help but smile as I imagined their confusion and panic as they scrambled to pack up and leave. It wasn't long before my phone rang again. This time, it was Tom. "Andrea, what's going on?" he demanded. "Why are there strangers in our apartment? And why did I get a notice from the mayor's office about our divorce being finalized?" I took a deep breath. "It's not our apartment anymore, Tom. I sold it. And yes, the divorce is final. This is what you wanted, remember?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Tom spoke again, his voice had softened. "Andrea, I was just joking about the divorce. I love you. We can work this out. I'll tell Mom and Sarah to move out. Please, just come home." "No, Tom," I said firmly. "This isn't about your mother or sister anymore. This is about us. You've shown me exactly who you are and what you think of me. I deserve better than that." With that, I hung up and blocked his number. As I looked around my new apartment, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This was my space, my life, on my terms. A year has passed since I took that leap of faith and opened my own massage therapy salon. As I stand in the reception area, watching clients come and go, I can hardly believe how much has changed. My little salon has flourished beyond my wildest dreams. Word of mouth spread quickly about the quality of our treatments, and soon we were the talk of the town. My appointment book, once filled with blank spaces and hope, is now packed solid for months in advance. I've had to hire 3 additional therapists to keep up with demand. As I watch them work, guiding clients through their treatments with skill and compassion, I feel a surge of pride. This is what I've built, what I've nurtured. It's more than just a business, it's a place of healing, of renewal. Financially, I'm more secure than I've ever been. The constant stress of pinching pennies and sacrificing my own needs for others is a distant memory. I can afford to pay myself and my staff well, invest in top-quality equipment, and even set aside a healthy chunk for savings and future expansion. But more than the financial success, it's the freedom that I cherish most. The freedom to make my own decisions, to shape my business and my life according to my own vision. No more compromising my dreams to appease others. No more putting my own needs last. I've heard through the grapevine about Tom and his family. Apparently, they're all crammed into a rented apartment across town. The reports aren't pretty: constant bickering, financial struggles, and a general air of misery. Part of me feels a twinge of sympathy, remembering the good times Tom and I once shared. But then I remember how he treated me, how he allowed his family to steamroll over my needs and dreams, and the sympathy fades. As I enter my apartment, I'm greeted by blessed silence. No screaming children, no demanding in-laws, no sulking husband. Just peace, and the freedom to spend my evening however I choose. My phone buzzes with a text from Lisa, my assistant, a last-minute booking request from a client in pain. Without hesitation, I tell her to schedule them in. This is why I do what I do, to help, to heal, to make a difference. As I head to bed that night, I pass by the photo of my father on my nightstand. His proud smile seems to glow in the dim light. "We did it, Dad," I whisper, touching the frame gently. "We really did it." I fall asleep with a smile on my face, excited for what tomorrow will bring. This is the life I've always dreamed of, challenging, fulfilling, and entirely my own. And I wouldn't have it any other way.